There we are. Hey guys, it's Freedom Friday. Gavin Syme here, and let's talk about a few things. Pop on in there. Let's get that live stream filled up. Let's have a little discussion. I haven't done a live video on here this week, so I wanted to take a few minutes. I do a lot of times live videos on my Facebook, facebook.com/callmegav, but there's a lot of fun people over here, and I don't want to leave you guys out of the live stream. So, gonna get in here with a live stream. You know, I want to talk about the abusers a little bit today. Our government, the greatest child abusers in the history of Earth, imprisons parents for exaggerated abuses and then sells their children for profit, and then subsequently locks those children in prison for acting out so that they can multiply that profit. And in America, a government that kills and promotes the destruction of children from the unborn to the aged, that's called law. And so we have churches and political organizations and all these groups saying, "Oh, we gotta support the law. We have to protect the children. We gotta protect the children. We gotta protect the children." Have you heard that before? Hey, have you heard this before? We have to protect the children. Have you heard this before? Have you ever seen a child suffer? Have you heard this before? Well, I support the rule of law. Have you heard this before? Well, we have to obey the law. Have you heard this before? Well, without government, who would? It never ends. And it's a lie that is being told to the people of Earth, in particular the people of America, who have turned into nothing more than a lynch mob, as we see over and over and over again. We saw this in the video I did the other day yesterday I think I posted this video, with the bogus trial of Chad Bennett, who was convicted of murder here in my county. And the police flat out ignored the evidence, and we're going to be exposing more on that. But we have a bigger problem. We have a jury, we have a community that would rather be a lynch mob. They'd rather put the wrong person in jail or violate their due process to get a conviction. They'd rather pat themselves on the back in our nation. We'd rather pat ourselves on the back and say, "Oh, look, aren't we civilized? Aren't we safe? Aren't we good? Aren't we righteous?" than actually do right, than actually do justice. Hey everybody, I see you guys in there. See, this isn't about America first or Americans or even like we have these rights, we have constitutional rights. No, there's human rights. You know, what about the case of Jacob Morgan? Go look up the case of Jacob Morgan. It will break your heart. Here you have a 17-year-old autistic boy who his 14-month-old brother, who he's crazy about, dies in a fire that maybe he set because he was playing with candles, but there's really no proof of that. That's just what the prosecution kind of put out there, okay? His house burns down. He wasn't able to save his brother, right? Guys, you have to see this to believe it. And you can go watch the video of his hearing. Jacob Morgan. It's on YouTube here. They charged him with murder because his brother died in the fire. And you watch this disgusting prosecutor, and he's up there and he's saying, "Well, there was some clear inconsistencies in the fire, and we think clearly this represents maliciousness." And the judge says, "Well, yeah, I find probable cause, and I'm going to charge you with murder." And this young man is delirious with shock. He's already has disabilities. People are saying he didn't do anything. They charge him with murder, you guys. These sickening, disgusting, these pawn scum judges and prosecutors and police officers that stand with them, that call themselves justice, stand by and let this happen. And so then they bullied him into pleading out to manslaughter. And they locked him away in prison for 15 years. Guys, you have a government who, in the name of protecting children, is quite literally snatching children from the arms of their parents and locking them in concrete cells. And we have the audacity to pretend that's justice, to pretend that the idea of locking people in prisons How about these people that have bad home lives and they commit some crime, right? You got these people and they commit armed robbery, you know, and they get 4 life sentences for armed robbery. I was watching a documentary on this the other day. And so they're in court, right? They've been in prison for 15 years since they were like 16 years old, right? And they're in court now. They're a man, and they're saying to the court, well, this needs to be reconsidered. I'm not the same man. And you got these cases, guys, where nobody died. And they get these so-called victims in there who were a victim at that time, who were robbed or held at gunpoint, right? And they're in there crying. They're like, oh, yeah, I remember when the gun was to my head, and I just can't stand the idea of this person out. Dang it, if you want someone to suffer 1,000 times more than you because they wronged you, you're not the victim anymore. You're now the perpetrator. If you want someone to be locked for the rest of their life in a cement cell, isolated, cut off from their family, cut off from life, when you want to rob someone's life from them because they wronged you a decade ago, guys, yes, there needs to be punishment for crimes. It needs to really go back to restitution and repaying the damage you did. There should be punishments. But most of the people filling our prisons, no one died. Most of the time it's threats. It's they had a gun, they possessed a plant. Guys, it's absolute insanity. If you support someone going to prison for life because of assault, you are insane. You have a mental illness. You hate your neighbor. You hate justice. You hate God. You hate truth. If the punishment doesn't fit the crime, it's not justice. You know, we can go back. People think of biblical times, right, as barbaric. And as a Christian, you know, I'll look at that and sure, there was things in the Old Testament that I'm like, wow, that was harsh, right? But actually, the law in like Old Testament Israel, the standard of justice, you couldn't have just a bunch of circumstantial evidence. You had to have witnesses. The appeal process was strong. You didn't just get locked away. The idea that someone would be locked away for life didn't even exist in God's legal system. If you robbed someone, you paid them back. If you hurt someone, there was a just punishment for that, right? It had nothing to do, your sentence had nothing to do with whether you possessed a weapon at the time. But now you have judges and prosecutors and courts that simply make it up. Guys, when I watch these prosecutors and they take a pea sitting in the corner and they start stretching that out like Play-Doh in the courtroom and making like, well, we had this here and then he did this and I think this is clear intent that he did X, Y, and Z. And they bring in this circumstantial evidence like they do in almost every case. And then the defendant, right? The defendant steps up and says, hey, I object. That's not relevant. That's not what I did. That's not what happened. And the judge says, sit down and be quiet or we will put a shot collar on you so that you can't speak anymore in the courtroom. You will let the prosecutor present his case. The judges are the prosecutors. We've got to stop pretending that the problem with America is that too many Muslims are coming here, right? Or too many Mexicans or these false narratives constantly fed to us. Guys, the police in America here on our soil kill more of us every single year than all terrorist organizations on the planet combined. Fact. If you can't get past your hate of your fellow man, if we can't get past this lynch mob mentality where we see some news story, and this is the final part of this. You see these news stories, guys, and it's like, oh, so-and-so did so-and-so to his brother, or so-and-so did so-and-so, is accused of doing so-and-so to so-and-so, right? Or there's a little kid involved, right? Or this or that. No evidence, no nothing is needed. The community automatically says, string them up, fry them. People like this should be hung from the nearest tree. We are such a lynch mob, and if you think a nation will escape judgment for having no mercy, now, I believe in God. You don't have to believe the way I believe. But God says there will be judgment without mercy on him that hath shown no mercy. I cannot think of a more merciless, hateful, vengeance-filled nation than America. Now, maybe it exists because human nature is pretty much the same all over the world. But you know what? The enemies the abusers of your children, the number one abuser of children is your government, your blue line. The number one trafficker of your children is your child services. The number one kidnapper of children is your government. And you know what? I don't suppose we can prove this, but it's looking more and more like the number one molester and raper of your children is also your government and your politicians. These filthy, reprobate judges, the police that stand there and watch, the prosecutors in their courtrooms, they are the most violent, reprehensible, deceptive, terrorist criminals in the entire nation. And we uphold them as justice. Everything that comes out of their mouth is lies and injustice and violation of due process. And so let me close with this. There is not one trial in the nation happening anymore where due process is followed, where the Constitution is followed. People say I'm generalizing, but I'm not. I could prove it in every single instance, and I have. There's not one officer who will step up and stop it and defend their oath. I still have a $500 reward out there for anyone who can show me an officer. Guys, I haven't even got one serious submission of a candidate from the whole country. Every one of your police is complicit in the greatest terrorist attack in human history. And I refuse to pretend those men are good men. Now, maybe some of them are roped into it. Maybe we need to speak the truth in love. Maybe we need to tell them they're the bad guys so they can come out of it, right? That's how you save people. That's how you love people. Not by saying, hey, buddy, you're a hero. I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, when they're a terrorist. The police in America are terrorists. Absolutely proven fact. And if you disagree, it's because you haven't been on the receiving end of their terror. And yeah, that's right. If a cop honors their oath, they'll stop being a cop. That's the sign of a cop who's become good, is they quit because they can't abuse people anymore. Don't you dare put on your blue badge and your uniform or your prosecutor's outfit or your disgusting little judge's terrorist robes and tell me I'm protecting the community, I'm protecting the law, and you're a radical, Gavin. I'm not the radical. Me and the people in here, we're talking about law. We're talking about justice. Guys, they're going to come after me eventually, but listen to me. There will be no justice until the courts are stopped, the blue line is stopped, and all the prisons are torn down, because no one in those prisons has been given due process, and their innocence must still be assumed. And so, no, I'm not sorry for the way I believe. I'm not sorry for telling you guys the truth. And no one wants to hear it. The more I tell the truth, the more hate I'm getting. The more my own people attack me because I tell the inconvenient truths that the world, quite frankly, doesn't want to hear. But you know what? Take courage. It feels good to tell the truth. It feels good to defend the innocent, even when the lynch mob is calling you names for it. It felt good to make a video about that man that was just convicted of murder as everyone attacks him and his family. Guys, in Ephrata, in my town, the wife of this man who was just given a second illegal kangaroo trial for murder in Ephrata, the people in the community are tacking threats to the door of Chad Bennett's wife's house, and then going out and pretending that they're for justice, that they're about protecting their community. Grant County is full of corrupt politicians and judges and blue liners and a lynch mob to back them up. But I won't back them up, and I sure as heck hope you won't back them up. But you know what? You got to speak out. We've got to stop being afraid to speak like we're doing right now. We've got to stop being afraid to state the obvious and say, wait a minute. You charge this guy with this horrible crime, and we're sad that this crime happened because it is terrible, but you've got nothing. Everything you're saying is a lie. It's time to start looking at their fake crimes and their fake laws and their fake prison sentences and their fake safety and say, you are a fraud, and I oppose you because I defend the law. Who cares about our factions and groups and what party we're with? Start opposing the terrorists in America. Start opposing our police. Not as a lynch mob, not as denying them due process. We give them the due process they denied to us. Start opposing them by having the courage and the love enough for your neighbor to look that officer in the eye and say, what you do is disgusting and you should be ashamed of it. Every police officer in America should be ashamed. If you live in a nation where the wicked and the tyrant are not shamed by the populace, you live in a nation of slaves. We don't need to call names. We don't need to use vulgarities. We need to take the high road. We need to start being bold. We need to stop making it about us. And we need to start defending these people out there. The prisons are full of people whose lives have been ripped from them. Some of those people did real wrongs and need to reconcile those wrongs. Most of those people are in prison under false pretense for crimes that, if they committed, were nothing like they were portrayed. And many of them are simply in prison because the government hates them and wants to silence them. Men like Jeff Winehouse, Schaefer Cox, the Bundys, Leonard Peltier. Because our system of justice is a scam and it falls to us. It falls to you out there to fix it. And that starts here. Instead of throwing your smut and your anger out there, stop being a slave. Stop being a slave to yourself and your sins. Stop being a slave to the government. Stop being a slave to what the herd around you tells you, and start speaking out with justice and compassion. All right, guys, I'm going to go. It's almost the weekend. I actually got a lot of work here done this week. I am working on some new products. In fact, there's a new product we're working on in my studio here. It's a hardware product called the Meso. Believe it or not, I have to work for a living. I don't make my living off YouTube. And if you go over to my site, callmegav.com, or facebook.com/callmegab, hit the subscribe button or the like button, and go look for the Meso, M-E-S-O. It's a new product we're about to launch. We're going to be doing a Kickstarter for it. Non-related to what we're talking about today. It's just what I'm doing in my real life, right? And we actually just shot a video right here for a new software product that I'm about to release for my photography side of my business. And so I'm actually sitting here in this set we had, and that's what we did today. So hope you guys will get out there, love your neighbor a bit this weekend. Let's set aside our hate. Forget about whether we like somebody or don't like them, and let's just speak up. And let's go back. I'll go back and we'll ban some of these trolls. We don't even need to engage them, guys. The people that are defending this system are the enemies of liberty. And we love them by telling them the truth, but we need to stop pretending that saying the police are good guys, that saying that they're helping us. We need to stop pretending that it's okay to defend these courts. To defend these courts is vile. It's to defend terrorism. It's to defend the abuse of children and mothers and fathers and brothers. We're not Nazis. We're not fascists. We need to be free men. And it starts in our hearts. It starts with loving our neighbor. It starts with getting close to God, in my opinion. So that's how I'm going to do it. But whatever you do, let's do it with principle. All right, guys, have a good night. Have a good weekend. Second Amendment is not the most important, because the Second Amendment is how we defend the other amendments, but the reality is we don't have it in our country anymore. If you exercise your Second Amendment right to stop crimes from your government, you will be killed or go to prison. Right now, we need to use our voices. Look, I fully support gun rights and speech rights and all those things, but let's stay on task. Let's stay on task. Let's not pretend that tyrants are the good guys ever, any time in history, that those who abuse and kill others and murder others, life, liberty, and property, and the defense thereof, we do it with our voice. If all else fails, we do it with our guns. But the truth is, guys, we have no rights anymore in this country. We're a third world country. We need to stop pretending we're free. We need to stop pretending that we have gun rights. If you even carry a gun in the wrong place at the wrong time and get caught by the wrong person, you will go to prison for life. That's not freedom. That's not a Second Amendment. If you speak the wrong words, you will go to prison. If you touch the wrong person, you will go to prison. America has become a lie. It's time to fix that. You guys have a good weekend. Keep up the fight.